Hi there, and welcome to the Anxiety Society podcast, brought to you by Jordan Devlin and Scott Hope. This is a show where you can listen to people talk about their life experiences in relation to mental health. Visit Jordan's Anxiety Society on Facebook for updates on how you can get involved in future podcasts. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Right, so that's us. This is episode 3 of the Anxiety Society podcast. Today we're joined by Courtney Halkett, who's a good friend of myself. We've also got Scott Hope here, who's going to be doing the podcast with me. So, Courtney, what's been happening?
Not much, how are you?
I'm alright, same old fucking COVID nonsense.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay here still here, man.
If you're hearing any funky noises, it's just Scott's bar stool squeaking, because we're doing the first one in person, but don't worry, it's all socially distanced. So, let's hear a wee bit of your background and where you've been through your... How old are you now? 20?
I'm 21, 22 next week.
22 next week.
Yeah.
Right, so you've got 21 years to get through in a matter of an hour and a bit.
Well, yeah, so I don't even know where to start.
It's fucking tough, man. It's just to go fucking down. Tell me about yourself like that. Fuck.
Don't worry, it's not an interview like that, it's just a chat. So basically, what's your earliest memory that you can remember, pretty much?
What, from like my childhood?
Just like anything. So your life, but something that sticks with you for the past, and there's a reason that sticks with you.
Just like going to my granny's and granddad's every Friday. That was like my routine. Just seeing them every Friday.
There you go.
Like so simple, but
no, there's nothing
nothing that exciting.
So, obviously the podcast is related with mental health. Obviously I can personally that you've been through some stuff in the past. I don't know the extent of it.
Yeah, you
so
don't.
I'm going to probably find out quite a lot today. But if you just want to talk about that and maybe when your first experience was related with mental health illnesses and stuff.
So basically, I had always suffered with some sort of anxiety, but I never got diagnosed with it until 2 years ago.
Right.
So I would always be like, it probably sounds a lot like stupid to some people, but like,
I don't know.
To like kick it off, like when it all like went to like pot for me when I was like really ill with it and stuff was a couple of years ago, like maybe 2 years ago now, when it first started with my mum and dad splitting up. So my mum and dad split up and I was just kind of like, okay, like
So how old were you when
like
that happened?
20.
20?
That's quite late.
Yeah, so mum and dad split up and obviously it's kind of hard to take because it was just completely at random. I had just finished getting my eyebrows done, phoned my dad being like, do you want to go to Starbucks? And he's like, yeah, like I'll come pick me up, we'll go for a Starbucks. And I'm like, okay. He's like, but I need to speak to you about something. And I'm like, oh my god, like this is something like, you know when you just have that feeling in your stomach, like you know something's bad. And then, but the weird thing is we went for a Starbucks and my mum met us there and like obviously they told me and I had to go back like to work and do a back shift with like knowing that my mum and dad are splitting up and I was just like,
okay now.
Oh my god. So when I went in, I had said to my manager and stuff, but this was only the start of it like triggering everything. So a couple of weeks after my mum and dad split up, obviously my mum took it really hard. Yeah. So my mum took her and my little sister to America for 6 weeks. So I was just kind of left dealing with it. So I was at work and it was the day after me and my little sister went to Ariana Grande. I was at work and I've never felt any like proper like I've had the mental symptoms of anxiety but never anything physical to the extent that I was on the phone to the NHS 24 and they were asking me questions like, is my face droopy like I was having a stroke? Yeah. I just couldn't. I was so dizzy I couldn't stand up, obviously because how bad my body's like feeling. So we went to the hospital. Manny came pick me up, we went to the hospital and like they were like making me try to walk in like a straight line. I couldn't walk in a straight line. It was like I was steaming, but I wasn't. Yeah. And from there like, they said to take these tablets to like help like my balance and stuff. until I was feeling a bit better. So was off work for like a week.
Yeah.
Got signed off with the doctor and just kind of spoke to the doctor and told him what was happening. I was in the middle of the doctor's surgery and I just broke down in tears.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was in hysterics and she was like, just try and breathe for a minute. But like, after I had been to the doctors and stuff, more bad news hits.
Right.
My dad phones me to tell me my nana's got cancer. She's got lung cancer. So you've got to deal with all this in one go. We go and see my nana a few times and stuff. A couple of weeks pass by, more bad news hits. But this time my dad's in my house with my mum and my sister on their back to tell me my nana's got 6 months left to live. So I'm trying to deal with all that, how I'm feeling, my mum's feeling, my little sister, who's still in high school, was horrible. There was days I lay in my bed, I would not leave my bed. I wouldn't eat anything, there would be plates of food lying in my room, cups of water, and I would just sit there. I would touch it.
That's what happens when you feel like that. You just don't want to do anything. You just want to kind of sit in your own little hole and just let the world eat you alive pretty much. Yeah.
So did you see anything coming with your mum and dad? Or was
no, it was completely random for me.
That must have been so much harder at your age.
Yeah.
Like, my mum and dad split up, I was like 6. So although it sucks at the time, you don't quite understand. You just know he's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Quite the same, but like at that age where like you fully comprehend what it means, that must have been really hard to deal with.
It's horrible.
And I bet there's not a lot of folk that have to deal with it at that age. Like normally,
if it's going to happen, it happens early doors.
It happens early doors.
I wish it happened when I was younger.
Aye.
Like, maybe around like Maya's age, like my little sister, like I wish I was a bit her age because she kind of got it, but she kind of didn't.
Yeah.
Whereas my brother doesn't, he's in his own way world, like nothing faces my brother, like it's very like hostile, like reserved.
You'll be surprised though, he's probably dealt with it in his own wee way. Maybe he's probably just put on a front to you so that he doesn't show any sort of weakness in that, so he's strong for you, so you can be like, oh, my brother's feeling alright, so I can be the same as my brother, things like that. But it must have been strange, especially if there wasn't any signs. Like normally if like couples break up, there's lots of arguments.
Yeah, like we were in the middle of moving house, turning house, and he was just turning around to my mum and was like, I'm doing my baby anymore. Like I love my dad and my mum, like don't get me wrong, and stuff, like I'm not wanting to bash either of them, but like see like the way it went around, at the time it was so hard to deal with. There was so much anger towards my dad. Mm-hmm. Because obviously he said that, but there was days, weeks that I would not speak to my dad. Like we had each other blocked because we had fell out at one point. Like it was horrible.
I'm sure I can still remember that.
Yeah, I think
when you were talking about it and stuff. Obviously I was speaking to your dad at the time because he was doing like all my fitness tracking and that at the gym, so I was like none the wiser of the whole situation that was running in the background. But
they're so much better apart. Like they've got actually a good friendship now. Like my dad can come round for tea, like dinner with us, and we all just sit. Mm-hmm. They're really good friends. It works a lot better for us, me and my sister. Yeah. So we'll have like the time that I think, oh, this is really crap, is like birthdays and Christmases, because Dad comes up on our birthdays either in the afternoon when he's finished work and early in the morning, and then on Christmas we take a turn at Mum's and we'll take a turn at Dad's. And it's a bit like, this is rubbish.
See, I'm a bit an optimist, so the way I'm thinking of that is you're getting 2 sets of presents. Trying to find the good in every bad situation.
See, like it does work like that. You're like, oh yeah, like, but as you get older, you're like, it's not really about presents. Like even this year, like obviously with COVID and that, I was like, I couldn't care less what anybody got me. I just wanted to go to my grand's and have spend Christmas with my granddad. Like
I really noticed that this year. Well, I'm not fussed about especially New Year, because I had to isolate over New Year.
Oh my god, yeah.
In the house, and Jackie Bird wasn't even on. It was that lassie after bang Scotland advert. I was like, you're joking. This is the one year I need Jackie, and she's not on the telly. And I was actually sitting with a gin myself.
Honestly, just give me a set of socks and a Lynx Africa gift set in my family, and I'll be so happy.
I had a tear in my eye when the bells went. I was like, what is going on here? Why am I sitting myself on New Year? Like it felt so unnatural.
I know, New Year was a weird one.
Like it makes you think though too, like all like the old vulnerable folk that are obviously they can't leave their house and stuff, then who they got to go and see them. So obviously they've been through it all at their age and that, but just like you're saying, how to feel so isolated on, especially on Hogmanay, like I can, it's just like any other day, but it means a lot to everybody, especially after the fucking shambles 2020.
I know.
2020 was, yeah.
And that's I think it sort of, I think everybody got in the frame of mind where that was a wee bit closure.
Mm.
And I think this year's even worse. Like,
yeah.
Because you thought like, oh, New Year, that'll be, like, it is just, like, COVID has got the idea that it was New Year. Like, it's just, so it's just,
we'll wake up on the 1st and we'll get to go back to festivals, we'll get to go to the pubs, we'll get to see our pals. It just doesn't work like that. What's that, the 26th of February the day, and we're still locked in.
Aye, completely locked in.
Aye.
But it can't go on much longer. I am genuinely going off my head.
That's horrible, like.
It's horrendous.
To be fair, if it wasn't for lockdown and that, this probably wouldn't be a thing, so everything's got like, the same again. I'm always optimistic about every situation regardless of how shit it is. Like, I'll always try and find the good in it. It could be the worst of situations, but if you can just find that wee bit of good, it makes everything a wee bit better.
I suppose you're saying, like, as you're saying, like, at least you've still got a relationship with both parents.
It's so much better.
Aye, and at least you can take that. It is a small positive, but it's a positive sort of nonetheless.
Yeah, like the other week, me and my sister were sitting in my mum's room. Maya was doing my hair, and my mum FaceTimed my dad and was like, "Look at Courtney. She looks like she does when she's like 4 and she's wee." Like, they've got such a good relationship behind it. Obviously, it helps and stuff now. And obviously, with like me being like for the last few months, like probably at the worst point I have ever been.
Yeah.
They've like really like came through it. My mum doesn't understand mental health to the best at the best of times, but I think she started like slowly starting to realise like what. Like, I remember I came in not a couple of weeks ago. This is when I came home from work because I was like had a complete breakdown at work. I dropped my bag and I just burst out into tears. Like, I could not like hold it, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "My anxiety is so bad." I was like, "I feel like I can't breathe." And she was just like, "Oh my god," she's like, "Come here," and she just gave me a hug, and she didn't say anything. She just gave me a hug. Like, she just like knew. I know, it's like when you're crying, you're like, and I can hear myself, and I was like pure hyperventilating, and I was like, oh my god, like in my head I'm like, I need to stop crying, but I just couldn't stop crying because it was like a release for me. That I had bottled so much up that I just broke.
That's the thing though, like, you didn't care when it's going to hit. Like, I'm even the same to this day. Honestly, I could be kicking about, feeling absolutely perfect, driving the motor. It was night shift last night and this song come on, and I just felt my eyes starting to go. Like, when I was driving, I was like, why am I going to greet here? Mate,
that is complete. I greet everything. Honestly, I can't remember what I greeted. It was a film the other day, and I was actually thinking, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it wasn't even that sad. I
cry everything, you know that as well, Jordan. I'm the worst. Like, I could literally drop a pair of socks and be like, in hysterics, like.
I think everybody's the same, like, with that sort of stuff.
I've never cried after I dropped my pair of socks, so I didn't cry.
I went the song, another pair of socks. I think sometimes I would just catch you off guard and I'm like, what's going on here?
Honestly, my dad's the exact same. Like, the amount of times, like, when I was staying with my mum and dad, I went down the stairs and my dad was watching a film and he was sitting bubbling away to himself, and I'm like, what are you doing, you absolute gimp?
It was cheaper by the dozen too. Came when they named the bairn after him. Pals away. I don't know why I put it on, but I called the bairn Tom, and I was like, oh, here we go. What's going on here?
So, Courtney, just going back to a bit about you, and obviously when you've obviously found out this bad news, well, it sounds like you found it out in a 3, which is, you've heard that the same bad news comes in 3s.
Yeah, it does.
So you've obviously had your mum and dad breaking up, your gran being diagnosed with cancer, and then obviously getting told that it was terminal. So, for the first instance, when you got told that your mum and dad were breaking up, obviously you says that you went to your work and that, but see, after that, how did you kind of digest the news that you got given?
So obviously I went to work and I was just like, you know what it's like if you're at work, like, you have to be focused.
Yeah.
So in a way, being at work that day was a good thing because I didn't have to like sit and think about it and overthink it, because I am the worst for that. Like, I'll overthink every tiny minimal little detail. Like, it's so bad. Like, someone could say to me, I don't like that, or something that, like, like, Jordan could say to me, I don't like that top you're wearing, and I'd be like, in my head, like, why does he not like that top? Like, what's different? Like, it sends me in overload. So it's probably the best thing I was at work, but when you get home, you just sit there and you think, how did that come to that? Like, I was like, you just kind of learn to deal with it. It's like every day you just kind of
Is there anything you done after you found out? So, like, is there anybody you spoke to about it?
Well, I spoke to obviously the doctor, told the doctor everything that had happened, spoke to my manager, believe it or not, at work at the time. They knew and stuff. And that was like a great help, like my manager, like just kind of someone I could like, that had no, like that would only just think about my feelings. They can like see it from every side, which was so much better than just like only being able to see it from my side. And like my little sister, obviously I think I took a lot on in terms of looking after my little sister when it all happened, because she's just so cute. Like, I'm not going to beat her into bush. Sometimes I hate her as she's getting older, but she's just like the sweetest wee soul ever. Like, honestly, like she kind of was like, I think she was a wee bit lost because she was still at school and she was just kind of.
What age was she at the time?
Nah, so she's 16 now, and my maths is terrible. So I think she must have been about 14, 15, 13.
13 or something.
I reckon, something like that. And she was just kind of like, she didn't know really what to do. And my sister's complete opposite from me in terms of, she doesn't really show how she feels, whereas I kind of do. And she just kind of like bottled it up a lot. And then one day she just burst out crying. And she was just like, spilling out how she felt. And I was like, oh my God, like, it's good to know it's not just me that it's affecting, like, majorly.
As selfish as that sounds, but I get what you mean.
It does sound really, actually,
you're both on the same boat. No, I 100% understand what you're saying. It's like, you've got the feeling that I'm not alone, so there's a reason I'm feeling like this.
I know, and then like obviously to find out like my nana had cancer and stuff, like I've never lost anyone to cancer before. That was my first big loss to like with cancer. And it's like all how like juggle it. Like I'd go and see my nana in the hospital at like the Western General in Edinburgh, and I kept thinking like, what's like, how was she actually ill? Because she just looked like my nana. It's like, it's so bizarre. And then in like January, like obviously we got told in November, a couple of weeks after my sister's birthday, that she had terminal cancer. The day after Keen's birthday in January, on the 6th of January, my dad comes to our house he's like, I'm on my way just now. I think my mum was night shift, I think at midnight, and was like, your nana died. And I'm just like, I think it took Maya a lot like longer to process it than it did, because I just burst out crying. And I was just like, what? Like, my dad was just like, I don't even know, like my dad was just like, wasn't my dad in that moment in time, because bear in mind that's his mum, he's just lost his mum. He's had to go and see his mum. Could you imagine how hard that is, coming to tell your two daughters that? And then phone, when my brother had his own flat at the time, to phone my brother and tell him that, like.
Well, you can what grandparents are like.
I know.
Like, as much as they've got their sons and daughters, so like your dad, for example, their grandparents are the world, and their grandparents think the exact same. Like I said on the first podcast, like I was the exact same. I wasn't like you though. Like, I didn't break down at the time. I was similar to say your sister.
Yeah.
It's just something. Some people can process it there and then, but you didn't want to believe it. So I think that's maybe why I didn't break down. But
like, that was just a normal day in my life, and like I had my lunch ready to go to work the next day. Like I was trying to eat better and that, so I had all my lunch sorted. Like everything was just ready. Like for the next day, I was just going to get on with my life as normal.
Yeah.
And I feel like the moment it really sunk that it was real, the day I had to phone my work and tell them I couldn't go in because my nana died last night. Like I had to say that word out loud, and I had to phone in every day for a week to say I wouldn't be in, because I didn't want to go and deal with more work while dealing with this. And I had to say it to so many people, like, I can't come in, my nana died the other day, like I'm just not ready. Like, saying it out loud makes it more real. And I think that's what the same thing is with my anxiety and depression, is saying it out loud that you've got it makes it more real. And it is scary, like coming out and being like, I've got this wrong with me, but it does help.
100%. Like, just like you're saying with that, like the anxiety side of things, seem to just sit on it in your head and just let it go round and round, and whenever you put yourself to rest and just stop for a minute and let your mind go away in your thoughts and you not tell anybody about it, you're just sitting like, fucking hell, if I reach out to anybody about this, they're going to think I'm a psychopath. Like, I can't speak to anybody about this because this isn't normal to be feeling like this, because you've never felt it before.
Nah, no,
like
you feel like you're a complete, like...
But like, that's what I mean,
Joel.
you're talking about your physical symptoms, side
Yeah.
of things, like you were obviously struggling with your balance, you couldn't walk, like you had blood vision and stuff like that, like that's completely different to what I had it, so it just shows you like how different it affects different folk. So that's the whole reason why we're doing this. Like, so I bet you're somebody else that's probably listening to this, but like, I had symptoms similar to her. So
I know.
maybe I'm going to go and speak to somebody about it and see how I can get help. But so you've obviously been told all these terrible bits of news, quite frank. So see, after you've obviously found out that your nana died, you obviously broke down there and then when she got the bad news. How did you cope sort of the weeks, months after that?
So, I went to work. I kind of just buried my head in it, like, until her funeral. And I think at the funeral and stuff, like, my nana's originally from Liverpool, so all of her sisters and stuff like came up, and my nana's sister is her double, so it's like a double take.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not my nana, like,
Aye.
you know what I mean? And like at the funeral, I think the funeral makes everything that more realistic. Like it totally is the worst thing, the funeral.
Yeah.
Because you know you're never going to see them again. Like that's like bye. And the worst part is at the funeral as well. My dad was sitting in front of me, Keen and Maya. Obviously, there was me, my brother, and my sister. And obviously, we just seen like Keaton burst out into tears, and I never seen my brother cry ever. And when I seen my brother cry, I was like, "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry!" And I had no control over it. Like I was in hysterics.
It's absolutely impossible not to do it.
I know.
As soon as you see somebody else's bottom lip gone,
I
know. Like my dad never cried at his funeral. Like I'd obviously see my granddad, give him a hug and that, and like. It's so weird because you're seeing all my family, like my dad's got 2 other brothers that I never actually see, and I'm like, this is so bizarre that like it's a lot to take in because there's all these different faces from all these different families, people, and everything that, you know. But like at this day I could, if anyone went who was at the funeral, I'd be like me, my dad, Keen and Maya, like because everyone else is a blur. Like it's so much to deal with. And like I remember like we got out of the car and my sister seen my dad, and obviously she's just so, like, to me, even though my sister's like 18 next year, she's always going to be this tiny little girl that's got her pigtails in, like she's just going to be like, and she just seen my dad and just started crying, and I was just like, see, like what I wanted to do is just wanted to take it all away from her, like never wanted her to feel like that. And I feel like I get myself in so much a situation where I want to take everyone else's pain away from them, and I'll just deal with it, like, and I know it's not okay for me to do that.
I think that's quite a natural thing. I think everybody can sort of sympathise with that. Like, I know when I've had people that's passed away, I'm not going to do it too much, but like, I know what you're saying, like, you see somebody else crying and you're like, I would do anything to take that, like, I would take 100% of that pain off them. If I could just see them relax for a minute, I would happily take all that pain away and deal with it myself. I think that's quite a natural thing, especially something you care about so much. Just like, I just wish they felt better. I know I can deal with this, but you're concerned for that other person.
It is hard.
Just speaking about what you've just said there, Scotty. So I think it was, how many years ago was that? 4 years ago. My cousin Mark Jordan, he committed suicide. And it wasn't until, like, obviously I got the bad news and I kind of broke down a bit because it was my cousin. I think he was what? I can't even remember how old he was at the time. In his late 20s, early 30s, say. I don't think he was as old as 30. But honestly, it wasn't until I went up to my cousin's and seen my auntie, which is obviously his mother, and she had to get fucking tranquilised by the ambulance to calm her down. She was just going through that much hurt and see. It's like, obviously you can't see the person's heart, but you can, it's just fucking breaking.
Aye.
And it's just like, I wish I could just take that off you.
I know, aye.
It's not your fault.
Aye.
Like, obviously, like, that's probably how a lot of folk feel when they've got somebody close to them that, say, commit suicide or something. Like, they want to pin the responsibility on someone, and if you're a mother, you're going to do that to yourself. Aye. As much as it was definitely not her fault, and she was a fantastic mum to my cousin. But honestly, just seeing somebody in that situation, like, I wouldn't even have to know the person, but just to see somebody devastated, it upsets you.
Aye.
Because you just feel like, I just wish you wouldn't feel like that, because it's no nice to see somebody upset, eh? But that was just something similar to what you're saying. Like, you just wish to, like, love to take the hurt off somebody. Like, you're similar, you're saying that with your sister. As much as you want to do that, it's not healthy to do that either.
No.
Everybody has to deal with things in their own way, and it's horrible it is to see somebody devastated. Like, that will make them better in future, because if they're not devastated, it'll hit them at some point. It's going to hit everybody.
I don't actually think it is a bad thing to feel that way. I think that gives you comfort that you're a good person, and like, you don't like to see other people suffer.
It does, yeah.
So even like, again, try to take tiny positives for it. At least you know, like, at heart you're a good person, that you don't like seeing other people suffer. And that, like, we had a deer at work the other week there, and honestly, it was torture. It wasn't actually his it was the car in front of us. But then, so we sort of stopped at the back of it, and it was still alive, but the back legs were completely broken, and it was like trying to drag itself off the road, and it couldn't move, and it was, the farriers were like, none of the farriers could watch. We're like, what was supposed to do here?
Did you kill it?
No, we just had to lift it off the side of the road.
You should have killed it.
None of us had the heart.
Aye.
We were thinking about it, we were like, who's going to do it? I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like,
it's funny you said that. Mind that, I was working on Tuesday, for folk that didn't ken. I work on the railway, so I come across quite a lot of dead things. Not people so much, so that's not the side of my job, but like animals, so like deer primarily. So I was walking along the railway, and I can obviously see this like object in the middle of the tracks. So it's broad daylight, and I'm just thinking it's a deer, because it's always a deer.
aye.
And as horrible as it is to see it, like, it's dead, so it's not struggling or that. Like, you can, it's quick because it's been hit by a train.
Aye.
So I'm walking closer and closer, and I'm looking at it, and it's white, and I'm like, that, I've never seen a fucking white deer. And by this point, like, the boy I'm working with, he's quite a bit up the track, so I just kept walking, and I'm getting closer and closer, and I'm looking at this, and I get point blank to it, and I look the poor wee thing square in the eyes, and it's a dog, eh?
Oh my god, no.
Honestly, my heart sank up, and I just thought, fuck me. Like, I'm sure everybody else is the same that's got a dog. Like, I'd put my dog's life above mine.
Aye.
Like, they're the most selfless creatures. Like, unconditional love. Like, you could be anybody. You could be the worst human being possible. A dog will love you 100%. If you treat that dog right, it'll love you, and that's all that. All this is going through my head. Like, that dog's got an owner that doesn't ken it's here.
Aye.
So honestly, I just looked in the wee thing's eyes, and I was like, oh, fuck that. I kept walking. I got up to the rest of the boys that I was working with, and I says, I reckon if you've seen that, but there's a dog up there. They're like, nah, I seen the colour of it, and just kept walking, didn't plant eyes with it, and I was like, fuck me, man. So I was at the phone and report it, and luckily the owner's been made aware of that now, like, but it just wasn't a pretty sight. So just your deer situation. You should have killed it. It sounds very selfish, but if you were walking with, like, dragging yourself off a road with broken legs, kenning you're about to die, would you wish somebody just put a...
I know, you're right, you didn't want to see, it was the suffering part of it. That was, see if the car had hit it and it had just stone dead. I don't think it'd affect me too much, because it's a deer, and it happens quite a lot, but just seeing the suffering, I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. What isn't it? Try to drag itself. We tried to phone the deer manager to come out, and because they've got authorisation to shoot it and that. But it was like 3 a.m, so he couldn't come out. So we just did it. To be fair, it was by the time we'd moved it off the road, there wasn't a lot of movement. It was like the breasts were pretty shallow, but It was hard to watch, man.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Sorry, right, we went off on a wee bit of a tangent there, but it's kind of all relatable. So we're talking about obviously seeing somebody hurting and wishing we can take the pain off it, but obviously it's healthy to feel pain, obviously, regardless of the whole dear dog situation. That's a bit different. But so Courtney, back to your story. Obviously in more recent times I'm aware of what you've been going through, kinda.
Yeah.
Not so much really in depth, but basically just give us a wee bit of background in the past year or so, whole COVID situation, work side of things, like how you've been feeling.
So obviously, like when COVID hit, like I had no idea, like the first time I was aware of COVID was me and Liam were on a flight to New York. Like, and remember like hearing like the first cases and stuff, and I'm like, oh, we'll be fine, like it won't, like nothing will happen. And then it's like a couple of weeks after my 21st birthday, Boris obviously announced we're in lockdown, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how, like, I'm still waiting to find out if I'm going to be working or not, like So I've got to go into the work next day, and I'm still trying to digest all this, and I remember like just bursting out crying. I was like, what the hell did, like, how has this all happened? Like, it's so much to deal with, and then I obviously work in customer service, so I've got to deal with how I feel majority of the time, but I also have to take on how other people feel. And being in a job during that, and I'm not joking, that was the worst minute of my life from March till June. It was constant abuse. We were getting blamed for everything. Like, they were like, how do you feel if you lost your job? Like, the amount of abuse we took in that first 3 months was the worst abuse I've ever taken over the phone.
I've heard from quite a few people that have said very similar. I think everybody that I know that works in that sort of line of work has said that first couple of months was really bad.
That was brutal. There had been times I had to be dragged off the phone because I was in tears. Like, the abuse. You get told you're useless, worthless, everything. The abuse is unbelievable. I could never speak to a human like that, ever.
People get brave with the phone. I think obviously it's a lot easier when the person's not. If the person was standing in front of you.
You would never.
Well, I worked.
Similar to what you said last week, keyboard gangster.
I worked on the phones as well, and then in the bank, and then went into the branches. And in the branch, you never got. It was like maybe one person got brave, like every month or something like that. But on the phone, as you're saying, it was constant, and it's hard. It's hard, especially when you get a couple in a row. You're like,
oh, that's the worst.
It gets tough.
See, before we keep going, like, obviously you're working with customer services and you're on the phone. Just for anybody that's in that line of work, obviously you're getting dogs abuse your whole shift. So how do you kind of switch from work to leisure?
Yeah. So obviously say for example, I've had the worst day at work, I've had nothing but abuse. I take that home with me. I know I probably shouldn't. I'll go home and be like, Mum, you'll never guess what I got called today. You'll never guess what I had to deal with. And obviously I don't give her details because obviously I'm not allowed to, but I can tell her obviously what's been like said and stuff. And she's like, I don't know how you do it. She's like, think about how it makes you feel. She's like, is a job really worth your mental health?
100%.
Because there's times, for obviously I've been off work since December, the 14th of December. I went into work one day. Do you know what triggered it? The traffic in the way to Edinburgh, because there was a car crash. Oh, that sent me over the edge. I was in my car, I had to phone and be like, I'm going to be late, there's loads of traffic. In hysterics, not to my manager, to my manager's manager, I was like hyperventilating in my car. I was like, I'm so sorry, like I'm going to be late. Like, she's like, Courtney, are you okay? And I was like, no, like in hysterics. Like, I walk in and I just throw my bag on my desk, and I was about to just like, no, I'm just going to get on with it today. Oh no, I wasn't. I got pulled into a meeting room, and Gareth was like, I'm sorry to say that. The manager that I spoke to. Yeah, and he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, just burst out crying even more. I was like, I feel like a burden. I was like, I feel like I'm the worst person in the world. I just broke down. At this time, I'm trying to balance work and college. So I was doing 8 till 4, and I'd stay at work till 8 o'clock at night to try and do my essay for college, because I knew if I went home, fuck all would get done.
Yeah.
Straight to the point. I had burnt myself out so much that I had a breakdown. So he was nice enough to give me, like, one of the managers is a mental health first aider, which has recently kind of been brought into work, which does help obviously in a way. But not everyone wants to speak out about their mental health because, like, I felt like a burden to everyone. I was like, what?
You need to feel comfortable with who you're speaking to.
You need to feel comfortable.
Sorry, having this title, like, hey guys, I'm your mental health ambassador here at X company. Come to me if you've got any problems. Like, I don't fucking know you. Why would I come to you? Why would I come to you with my problems? Like, maybe you've been trained, but it doesn't take training. It's your personality. Like,
lots of training a 4-hour PowerPoint.
But you probably slept 2 hours.
Yeah, like, obviously I've worked with these people for 4 years, so I've got a good, like, I wouldn't really say a friendship, but we've got a good understanding, obviously, how the way we work and everything. Like, I do feel comfortable enough to speak to them, and the way it is, but I just kind of said, this is obviously what's affected me. It was obviously college. I balanced my college work while working full time, which is a lot, while doing 2 courses. Like, I probably took on a bit too much to deal with at the time, because you know what it's like when you're at college and that you've got deadlines and that to meet.
Yeah.
And it's trying to do that, and then trying to, like, at work, like, I was in a really good position at work where I was helping my manager out. Like, I'd take over calls. Like, I had so much going for me, and I just had this breakdown. I never knew it was coming until obviously the traffic in the morning just...
Well, that's obviously been your trigger. Like, you're putting this much expectation on yourself. Like, I'm helping my manager. Like, he's relying on me here. If I'm late, I fucked it. So that's probably what's what set you off.
I know, like, see, the idea of being late, like, I'd be like, happily be late, like, an hour too late for, like, going out with my pals.
Nah, you were late today.
What was it? Like, I'd be late for that, or like if I'm going into my friend's house, I'm like, oh, I'll be 20 minutes. I haven't even left the house yet, and I'm like, here, like, like stuff like that. I'm totally fine. But see, when it comes to like work and college, I stress out so much because it's obviously so important. Like, I would work on a Tuesday and Thursday. I had set shifts 9 till 5, so I could be working 12/8 the Monday, 9/5 on the Tuesday, 12/8, 9/5, 12/8. Like, that's no routine for anybody.
I know.
And that's kind of what I was having to do. Like, my shifts were all over the place, and I'd be working weekends, and I had to try and filter in time to, like, see friends, do this, like, make time for me. It came to a point where when I was breaking down, I wasn't eating. I had barely slept. I went into work that day with the traffic on 3 hours sleep. Now, I'm driving to Edinburgh and back every day, which obviously I need to have good concentration on the road.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was a mess.
Is it
like,
Edinburgh City Centre?
The Guile.
Okay,
So we work at the Guile, which is still, it's easy enough to get to, but you're still driving, like, it's 25 minutes away from my house, like, on little sleep, like.
Yeah. It's not even that though, like, you need to feel comfortable and, like, you're fit to drive, because it's not just your safety, you're, like,
it's everyone else's,
yeah. Like, it takes, a second for you to lose concentration. You can wipe out a family, so all that's going through your head.
I know, like,
so you need to make sure you're 100%.
You put a lot on yourself, and I went in and I just kind of, like, got everything off my chest. So obviously with COVID, you can't actually, like, I couldn't phone my doctors and book an appointment. I have to, like, do, like, a form online and, like, and stuff like that, and, like, you've got to, like, score yourself on, like, your mental health. So it's, like, ask you, like, about panic attacks, like, sleeping, like, and ask everything. It's like, I remember one time it was, like, one of the questions, which is probably, like, hard for a lot of people, like, it was, like, do you ever feel like killing yourself? Like, do you have, like, thoughts about damaging? Like, not damaging, what's the word, like, hurting anyone?
Self-harm.
Yeah, or, like, self-harm, or, like, hurting anyone else. And at this time, I was like, well, no, I don't want to hurt anyone else, but I was like, I feel like the worst burden ever. And I said that to him. I was like, I feel like a burden to everyone because how I'm feeling. And he's like, you're not a burden. And I just was like, why fight it anymore? Like, I just wanted to give up. And I went, obviously, like, I felt the worst, like, ever. So we set a plan that I was going to obviously speak to my doctor, but I've never told the doctor that. Most of my friends don't even know that's how I felt. Like, you didn't know that's how I felt. But probably not even half my mum and dad probably don't even know that that's how I felt.
You didn't want to tell somebody about that though, because
No.
you feel like all those days worry.
Yeah, because you're like,
But you didn't want them to worry.
you don't want them to worry, because I knew myself, I probably wouldn't have done anything, but it's that you do feel like that. You're like, I feel like a burden. Like, I don't want to be a burden to anyone else. Like, it's so hard. Like, it is, because you don't, like, I would never do anything because I have in my mind my little sister and my brother, and, like, my mum and my dad. But, like, it's sometimes hard to fight those thoughts that come into your head, and obviously I have to go and antidepressants, like I'm on like medication, like I speak out and stuff, like about it, and I don't want to get upset.
It's alright, don't worry about it.
So I went and like set my plan with like my manager. I was going to phone the doctors, and he's like, do you have anyone that you feel really comfortable speaking to in your family? And I was like, my Auntie Helen. She has 2 little boys, and they are my complete lifeline when it comes to anything. And I didn't realise this until recently, that going to see the boys makes me feel a lot happier. And like I would deliberately make plans so I didn't have to sit in the house, so I could go and be with them, so I would just feel that little bit like
Purpose.
I had a purpose, like, and then I would like, I had started doing like a walk, because all I was doing was sitting in the house every day. Like I couldn't even tell you what Netflix shows I watched or anything, because it was just there, and I was just lying in my bed, like not even paying attention. I was just thinking about it. So I was like, I can't keep going on this way, because this is a downward spiral and it's going to get worse. So I had spoke to the mental health charity Mind, and this is why I done my walk. So I had spoke to them. Obviously she was like, what, the woman I spoke to was amazing. She's like, so what do you do? And she's like, what was your job, like what? She's like, focus on your ambitions in life. Think about all the good stuff. So everyone that doesn't know, obviously Jordan that knows, I'm currently studying just now to go and do paramedic science at uni. So the reason I want to be a paramedic is because I watch all the programmes on ambulance. I've watched it.
That's amazing, eh?
So good. And the most common factor these days in terms of paramedics going out is mental health. And I would do anything to help anyone so they didn't feel the way I felt, even if it's just for 5 minutes, like just a 5-minute conversation, just to be like, it is going to be okay, because I've been there, I've been in your shoes, and like I need to just focus on the good. She's like, do things that you enjoy doing. So going out with the boys is one of them. And I just kind of told her like everything, how I felt, like I spilled everything, and then I was just like, what can I do to actually make a difference? So I was like, I'm going to go on their website, because that's how I found the number and stuff, was on their website. And I seen they were doing Move for Mind, so you can set yourself like a challenge. So the whole of January, from the 1st of January to the end of January, my goal was to walk 50 miles. So I had done that, and my initial target was 150, and then I had met my target in a day, and I was like, why not push myself that little bit further? And I had ended up raising like £250 or something, but £100 of that is for an advisor to be on the phone for someone, like to be there. So it was so good for me as well. Like, see, going out walk with my friends, like even if it was just one of them or like 2 of them, it really helped, because I knew I could just kind of say how I was feeling, and they're going to probably listen to this and be like, I had no idea this is how she felt.
I know, because everybody puts on a front for their pals and that. You didn't want to be upset.
Yeah, like what you said, like girls are like, on like, if we were going a night out, they'd be like, oh, this boy's like, no, like, you know what girls are like?
Talk about everything.
Everything. But I felt embarrassed to say how I felt. Because there's such like a stigma in mental health, like it's so hard to reach out.
That's what the sole purpose in this is, right?
I know, and like my friends will openly admit they don't know how it feels. And there's a few of them that I would speak to that have suffered really bad with it, and I can speak to them and they get it, and some of my friends don't, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I can obviously help them with how I feel and stuff, and like, they kind of get a better understanding. Like my boyfriend of the last 3 years when I went out, we're no longer together, but he didn't understand it when we were together, which made it harder. Like I'd sit and cry.
Yeah.
And be in hysterics, and he's like, you know, it's all going to be okay. Like, it's good enough saying that it's all going to be okay and stuff, but being there is the most important. Like,
yeah,
kind of having that understanding. I feel like a lot of people don't get it because they don't know much about it, which is fair. I didn't know anything about, like, I had heard about people like killing themselves and stuff, like, and I had no idea. Like, I was like, how can your life get to that like point where you feel that rubbish, and until you're in that person's shoes and you feel like that, you won't get it until you've gone through it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sure nobody would envy anybody that's been in that hole where you feel like there's literally no other way out than for me not to be here. Like personally, I wouldn't say I've felt exactly like that. But I felt similar to you, like, what is the fucking point of me being here? Like, I'm just getting on folks' nerves pretty much, like, same as what you're saying, like a burden and that, but as soon as you convince yourself you are that burden, you can't unconvince yourself that. You need people around you saying, look, honestly, like, it doesn't say it just one person, like, honestly, no, you're fine, don't worry about it, like, that's an empty sentence. You need so much folk saying, like, honestly, you're going to be alright, there's nothing wrong with you, so, like, go and just take it easy, we're always here if you need to speak, things like that. But no, 100% agree with everything that you just said.
Yes, I would never wish anyone to feel like they're a burden. Like, it's honestly like you feel horrific. Like, you'd like I'd be lying in my bed being like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I just don't want. I just didn't want to. It's not I didn't want to be here anymore. It's I didn't want to feel like this anymore, and it's fighting that.
Stop that. Like, a lot of folk think suicide's the way out, but it's not. Like, no matter what you're going through, you just need to speak to the right people.
It's never like, like, that's like when I think about like suicide and stuff. Like, my mum lost one of her best friends to suicide, and stuff. Like, it must be such a heartbreaking decision. They're like, I'm going to do this today. Like, see when you hear about folk jumping off the Forth Road Bridge and that, I'm like, that is so sad. Like, it actually is so sad. But until you've gone through having thoughts like that and mental health, I don't think anyone's really going to kind of understand it. But I also like empathise and stuff with people that don't reach out because sometimes they can't explain what's going on in their head, so how's someone else going to understand what's going on in their head, which was kind of how I felt at first. I was like, how's anyone going to get how I feel? I mean, I don't even understand it myself.
Sometimes you're just fishing for a definitive answer, but you can, there's no one. But you're still going to search and search and search in the hope that somebody says something and then that'll be you, back to normality. But it's never going to work like that. It's the same with everything in life, you need to work for it, and if you're feeling shite, you need to work to feel better. But I like you were saying, like, talking about jumping off the Forth Road Bridge, that was actually how my cousin Mark committed suicide. And folk didn't realise it, but you get these wee comments, like, I didn't take it personally because I know they've not went out their way to make me upset, but folk say, like, oh look, there's been another jumper on the bridge, there's the helicopter route and that, but that's somebody's loved one that they're talking about, and I just didn't, like, I never ever say anything, like, and it doesn't really affect me, but I just feel like, come on, like, didn't say stuff like that, it's not good to anybody, like, you didn't ken who that is in the water. But no, 100%. What was I going to say? So far we've covered grief, we've covered separation of your mum and dad, we've covered obviously work related stress, basically feeling like a burden, so that's personal. You didn't know what makes you feel like that. It's just a whole factor of things. It could be everything added together, like the whole grief side of things, your mum and dad separating, the stress at work, everything all coming together, and just thinking, like, I'm just killing everybody's tits, what's the point of me being here? But apart from that, would you say there was anything else throughout your 21 years that's affected your mental health?
There probably has been, but I couldn't pinpoint it.
Yeah. So, like, obviously you've got the initial grief is what triggered you at the start,
Yeah, obviously, like, everything, like, my mum and dad splitting up, and then, like, my nana and that, so it was just, even to this day, if my phone rings, I will jump. Doesn't matter who it is. My mum, I get that sinking feeling. Like, obviously I have weekly check-ins with work, and my phone will ring, and I'm like, I don't want to answer that.
In case it's something bad on
but it's something bad. And, like, the last thing, like, I pick up, because I'm always like, my voice croaks and I get shaky, and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's just, I don't like answering the phone.
Yeah.
But I know I have to pick up the phone. Like,
see, just as you're saying that, obviously you work for customer services,
yeah.
So that's maybe why you feel so shit, because obviously they're phoning to say, I don't get how the bank works, I've never worked in there. I went for an interview once and I absolutely fucked it, but Like, obviously you can, it's not going to be anything like that, but you didn't care what that person's going to turn around and say, yeah. Like, the person could actually come across suicidal on the phone because of their bank balance or something, but you're going to have to be the one that deals with that.
Yeah.
That's right. Nobody ever phones because they're always phoning because there's a problem. Nobody phones to go, by the way, I just got paid today. Like,
it's not how...
Brilliant, mate. It's always a problem. Everybody it's always a problem.
You'll realise, like, working on the phones, how nasty people can be until they get their own way. And like working on the phone, sometimes I'm like, are you stupid? Like do you not think about like how you're making other people feel?
Mm-hmm.
And
can
stuff
you say
like
that to them?
No, like the worst part of it is, in the outside world, if someone was like being horrible to me, I would retaliate. Well, I wouldn't retaliate. I'd be like, oh my god, like shut up. Like I would say something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one to keep my mouth shut when someone does something to annoy me.
You stand your ground, aye.
I stand my ground, and I feel like because everything I went through, I've realised that I've got to look out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be sitting there, and you just sit there and you just take it. Like I'd be sitting there having a cup of tea, like on mute. Like I just let them like say it. But I'm like one call I had remembered. Like oh my god, like this woman had absolute nightmare on an account, but she was the loveliest woman ever. Like, so I eventually got to the bottom of it. Like, she had went over a limit on her credit card, and I was like, "Is there any reason why you've gone over?" She's like, "I've been buying food for my mum and dad because they can't leave the house, obviously due to COVID." And I was like, "Oh," she's like, "Yeah, they're like looking after like my nephew who's got had some kind of illness or something." And I was like, so how is everything else regarding your finances? And she's like, no, I am kind of struggling at this minute. And I was just like, I'm going to have to do something here. So I got up, I was like, I'm going to put you on hold just for like 2 minutes or whatever. Went and got my manager, and they're like, refund it, put the promotion back on so she doesn't get charged interest and stuff. And I just kind of spoke to her, like she was telling me she was a teacher, like she had so much going on, like that she had lost track of everything. And like after it, and it's not all bad at the bank, like not all calls are bad. She got my manager to come on the phone, and she says, I'm a complete asset to that bank. I just listened to her. And people like that are more willing to help, because everyone has their own struggles, whether it is money, like mental health, or like their physical health. But it doesn't give you a reason to treat someone like shit on the other end of the phone.
Yeah, I know.
Ever.
Your reason to treat anybody like shit at any point ever. Like,
there's no need for that.
There really isn't. I do.
Folk have bad days, yeah.
I do sympathise with some folk, like, because sometimes by the time they get to you, they're at their wits' end, and I think that it sort of got to me when I was working there for the first couple of months, and then at the end I was like, it's not a personal thing. Like, they don't know me. They're not throwing insults at me because they don't like me. It's pure frustration, and I think it's tough to sit and take, but to try and sort of rationalise it and say like, they're at their wits' end here. Like, it's not a personal thing, but it's tough to do when it is when you're getting it all the time, especially with COVID and that.
Oh, with COVID was the worst. Like, I think that's what made people like the nastiest. Like, we were having to dispute like holidays. Like, folk are wanting all this money back. Like, they're like, but this is my money. Like, they were getting like, honestly, it was the worst. And it was actually sad. Like, at times you'd have like people phoning like, I really need an emergency payment for things. Like, I've just lost my job, and you're just like. And at the time, I was coming home every day and I was moaning about my job and like, I hate this, I hate that. Like, but I didn't actually realise how grateful I was at the time to actually have my job.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible, like some of the situations and stuff, because you're like,
I know.
It is a lot.
Like, a lot of folk are out there suffering with that now, obviously. Out of jobs, got mortgages to pay for, kids to bring up, all matters of responsibility. So, like, to folk like that, there's not really much you can say without feeling patronising them, like, anybody will get a new job. Like,
you don't want to be
patronising.
patronising.
That'll be fine. Money's not important. Money's not important when you've got enough money to survive.
Money makes a world go round, mate. As much as it's worthless in the terms of it'll make you feel good, like the amount of folk I've seen and what I listen to on podcasts that are millionaires, and they're like, honestly, see the money. It's not really about that, because they're like, a few of them have mentioned that they're always chasing it. I can't wait till this rips and I've got this car. Like, it was Joe Rogan that was saying about it. Like, when I've got X amount of money, I'm going to get this car. When I get this amount of money, I'm going to get this car. And he realised, even when he could afford the best car in the world, it was just a car at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't really affect. It gives you that wee buzz there, like for the instant rush that like dopamine or whatever the fucking chemical releases in your brain that gives you like, oh, this is class, I've got a new car. It's probably the same when you go and get a new car. Anybody that gets a new like online shopping, you get a parcel delivered. You've got parcels getting delivered every day of the week.
So that's me.
But like you're like, oh, this is class, you want that, and you're like, bro, and you put it in the wardrobe and that's it. That's your rush. That's your rush. For what? 50, 60 quid down in the bank.
I don't know, it's the worst. I think I was really bad when I was off work. Like, I was having stuff delivered like every other day, and my mum was like, do you really need that? And I'm like, yeah, like that's an investment.
You do convince yourself that you need it.
You convince it.
I've convinced myself that I need loads of stuff until it's come, and I'll be like, did I really need to buy that?
I'm
like,
saying.
I'm just saying like that. Mike's included. Like,
for anybody that doesn't know,
we really need these.
We've used different sets of mics for each podcast because Scott's just a sucker for a good mic, yeah?
I am. I just want good quality, mate. I'm no I try to script and save on mics. These are good though.
They are tremendous.
Yeah.
Well, we're saying that, we'll probably listen to it.
55 minutes in, and we're like 3 mice sitting here.
Robocop. I appreciate everything that you've just said, Courtney, but let's go to a wee bit more I wouldn't say a positive note because there's not been that much negative, it's just experience really, but what do you do? Like, obviously you've got your nephews, was it your nephews?
My cousins.
Your cousin, fuck me, I'm hopeless with family trees there. So you've got the wee boys, you obviously use that to keep your mind off things. You've obviously completed 50 miles for Mind, the mental health charity, anybody who doesn't can, which is amazing as well. Like, what was it you raised in total?
250.
250 quid, so that's you paid for 2 phone calls like the one that you had yourself,
Yeah.
so you've potentially saved 2 people's lives, so that's the way you need to think it.
Yeah.
Well, 2.5. I'm not going to do it. But, so you've done the walk, you go and see the wee boys and that. What else do you do to keep yourself ticking over and trying to keep yourself above board?
Looking after yourself. You have to. Like.
So what do you do when you're doing that?
So, I know this is probably such a girly thing, but you need to do it. Like, I'd have a day of the week where I'd just make time for me. So there'd be no college, no work, nothing else. I would do what I want to do in that day, regardless if it's like an hour, 2 hours, whatever. So it would just be like washing my hair, drying my hair, straightening my hair, like getting ready, put makeup on, just like something, like just look after look after yourself. Or like,
because we're not allowed to leave the house.
I know you're not allowed to leave the house, but like still like.
Just walking past the mirror, catching yourself and it, fucking no bad.
Even if I
long time no see.
And like my dog is my absolute world. Like Clyde is like my whole world. Like
Clyde, a wee shout out.
I know I have to. Take him walks and stuff, and I feel like when I was doing my walk and stuff, like when I was taking him out, he was loving life. Like even if it was a 6 mile walk, he came home and went straight to his bed because he's nearly 9. Like he's getting old. But like. Just making time for yourself because you really need to, because
sorry, it's just my neighbour, I think.
I was like, you need to look after yourself because the worse you feel, like if you're just sitting in bed all day, like lying in pyjamas. Don't get me wrong, I had a couple of bad days last week where I stayed in the same pair of pyjamas for 3 days. Like, I didn't want to go in the shower, like I didn't want to do anything because I just was like, oh, do you know what I mean? And like I feel like as well, like my room is a representation of how I feel. So if my room's a tip, it's because I feel crap. Whereas if I have a tidy room and a tidy mindset, like I'll go out, I'll feel more like today, like my room's tidy. I've actually left the house. Like normally I just leave my room to go and get a glass of water and stuff, but I've actually like came out the house. Like Jordan would say to me, like, do you want to do this? And I'm like, no, I'm not leaving the house today. Like,
okay.
He's like, things like that, and I need.
But I'm always encouraging you to like.
You do actually. You always encourage me to get out, and you like to do stuff.
I understand that sometimes you just need to lie in bed. And
sometimes I'll just sit in bed and I'll binge watch 2 series of Grey's Anatomy in a day. Like, well, not in a day, like 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Like constantly. And everyone's always like to me, "Why do you watch that so many times?" And I'm like, "It's comfort. Like it brings me a bit of comfort when I'm feeling rubbish. I probably recite half the lines, but like."
I say
it's
that
comfort.
Time, it's your comfort zone. I'm like, you need to pull yourself out that way. You're just going to keep getting deeper and deeper.
Well, you do say that to me. But recently, like, I've been really bad. Like, I won't leave the house. Like, really bad. Like, my mum does a lot of shifts because she's like a carer and stuff. And she's like, can you go and do the food shop? And I'm like, no. Like, I don't want to go out. So it sounds ridiculous, but I like having someone there when I go to, like, Asda or, like, son. Like, if my dad's at home, I'm like, oh, do you want to go to Asda? Like, just because I don't want to be on my own, because it's like, I always feel like folk are...
to stop you from buying all the shit that you would end up coming home.
I still do it, or my dad buys me. I'm like, oh, I want this. My dad's like, oh, put it in the basket. I'm like, thanks, Dad. Like, my dad, like, in a way, like, has really helped as well, because he kind of knows how it feels, because he's kind of going through it in himself. Like, it does help that, and like, my uncle Scott, like, he was really depressed a couple of years ago when he lost his best friend. Like, he gets it. And I feel like my gran and granddad, obviously, my granddad's 80 this year, like, they never really had any like this when they were growing up. So I was on the phone to my granddad the other day, and he's like, what you done? And I was like, oh, I've been in my pyjamas for the last 3 days. He's like, pull yourself out of it. He's like, just get up. And I'm like, that's easier said than done. Like, they've got that get up and go attitude, and I'm just like, I just don't want to move. And I've realised it's okay to have bad days. And like, they're like, not every day's going to be a bad day.
At least you've identified though, like, what does make you feel good. So if you do feel like it's becoming like a reoccurring theme, like this is like, say, the 4th, 5th day in bed, like, I need to do something, because I can for a fact, because I've already done it and it's proved that it makes me feel better. So for, say, your example, I'm going to phone my Auntie Helen, is it?
Yeah, my Auntie Helen.
I'm going to phone my Auntie Helen, I'm going to see if the boys are available. I'm going to take them for a walk. That knocks 2 birds with one stone, because obviously you like going for walks. Just going to spend some time with them, and then see once that walk's finished, you'll feel like you've accomplished something. And it's the same like what you're saying with the whole bedroom. I watched a motivational speaker, I don't know if you've seen it, it's on like YouTube. It's been on Facebook and that, this boy that was in the Marines.
Jocko Willing?
I'm not sure, but basically he talks about, once you get up, the first thing you do is you make your bed, because that's you achieved your first thing of the day. And I reckon you'll probably be the same. When you see a made bed and it's halfway through the day, you don't want to lie in it, because then it's no longer a made bed and it just goes all creased and that. Like, I'm weirdo like that.
Yeah, you're...
So once the bed's made, that's it until night time and you actually go to bed. So even me, things like that. So once you say, like, I don't care about you, every time I wake up in the morning I'll go for a pish. It's just like how the body works. Because you've been sleeping for 8 hours. So instead of going back to bed, I make it. And then that in turn forces me out of the bedroom, and then I'll probably come downstairs and lie on the couch, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
But you're out of bed, so you're out your, say, comfort zone, if that's where, like, say, your happy place is. But no.
As you say, I think stuff that keeps me ticking is doing, like, things that are difficult. So it doesn't matter, like, obviously I take a lot of this. I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, so, and I have been for a lot of years, and
I would ask you to get your leg out.
Aye.
But it's a bit inappropriate. He's got Joe Rogan tattooed on his upper back.
Is it bad that I don't know who this is?
Yes.
Aye. Yeah,
I'll Google him.
Aye, it's
I might recognise his face, I'm just bad with names.
He's got a theory like that doing difficult things makes your life so much better. Like, so I'll get up in the morning and do like a 5k at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm day shift. And it's not for a fitness aspect, and I don't even time it. Sometimes it takes me like half an hour to do it because I'm so tired. Like when I'm fully like well fed and well rested and that, I can normally do a 5k in like 22-23 minutes. And sometimes like 3 in the morning it's taking like 29-30 minutes just to get around it. But the feeling that you get once you've done it, like to have done a 5k at 3 in the morning, and then I'll jump in a cold shower, which fucking sucks as well. And it's horrible for the 2 minutes that I'm in it. But it's so much better than a caffeine hit. Like, it actually wakes you up. And there's mornings where I wake up at, my alarm goes off at 5 to 3, and I'm like, fuck this. There is no chance I'm getting up. And then I just give myself a countdown to 10. Like 10, 9, 8. And then when it hits 1, boom, get up. And just give yourself that, and actually don't give yourself the choice. Like, I genuinely don't give myself the choice.
So how many times have you got to 0 and thought?
Never.
Never.
And I'm not saying I'm fucking perfect and I've got my life's fucking, because it's not, like, nobody's life is ideal, but
You need to do what works for you.
I think I've got myself to a point, and I think this is why I'm trying to do this and sort of educate myself, because I am lucky in the fact that I've not really suffered with anything. But I think I've got myself in a position where I'm fit and healthy, I've got a job I enjoy, good pals, good family. So when I'm up here, and when something shit happens, it brings me down a wee bit, but it's still at a high level. Whereas I feel like you're unhappy and you don't like your job and don't exercise enough and all that shit. When something bad happens, your baseline is already so low that it fucking brings you way down. So I think something that's brought me up to that is doing things that I don't like regularly, and then when things come up in normal life that I don't want to do, like if someone comes up at work that I'm anxious about or that I'm not looking forward to, like, mate, you've already ran a fucking 5k and had a 3-minute cold shower this morning. Like, what's the problem? Like, you can get whatever's going to come up through the day.
Just need to remind yourself how you felt after you done both the 5k in the cold shower. It was a sense of achievement. You're like, fuck it, let's go.
It doesn't even feel like I hate every second of it.
Aye, but once you've done it, it's
even
done.
When I've done it, I thought that was shite. I absolutely hated that, and I'm never doing it again. And then the next morning I get up and I do it. Like, and I genuinely don't give myself the choice. Like, you are getting up and you're running it, whether you want to or not. Like, so, but that's coming from a position where it's said I'm not suffering with anxiety, depression. So I don't know. Like that feeling that I get where I don't want to do something. Yours must be so much stronger that it feels physically impossible.
It's basically feeling shite on roids.
Where I can tell when I'm bullshitting myself. Like, nah, you can't run this one and you're tired. Bullshit. Get up. Like, you're not tired. You think you're tired, you're not. But as I say, that's coming from a position of feeling good.
Aye.
Where like I've got no idea how it feels to feel that low. It must be fucking horrendous, man.
Yeah, it's not great.
Aye.
You feel like
I feel that you feel that you can't do that. But it's maybe just again, I'm not trying to give folk advice because there is no reason to fucking listen to me. I'm an absolute idiot. But like, it's maybe just a fucking tip. If somebody wants to use it, try and give yourself a countdown at 10. And like, regardless of how you're feeling, give yourself a countdown, and when it gets to 0, you fucking move. But again, don't listen to me, no.
I'm going to start doing that traffic lights when it goes green.
What's that?
As soon as it goes green, I'm just going to count down for 10.
10, aye, 10, aye. Does it get fucking folk tooting at the back here? I'm doing my countdown, shut it.
Nah, just when you're talking about the cold shower and that there, did I tell you to listen to Fern Cotton's podcast?
No, you only told me to listen to Jigsaw. Well, watch Jigsaw.
Aye, that's a whole different podcast. Aye, so Fern Cotton, I didn't ken who she was speaking to at the time, but I think it was maybe Joe Wick and Fern Cotton, but she took...
Is this the exercise guy?
Aye, the boy that does all the wee PE workouts for the Derns and that during lockdown. Aye, so he interviewed Fern Cotton on a podcast, I think it's on Spotify or BBC Sounds or something, and she basically talks about how every morning she goes for a shower, like she has the water normal temperature warm to wash herself and that, and then just before she gets out she'll wax it to the coldest it possibly can go. And she says she started at half, like she was only lasting 10 seconds under the water, but what she was doing is that she would flip it to cold, take deep breaths and just count in her head how long it's taking her to jump out. And I've started doing it honestly, and see how good you feel when you get out. Unbelievable.
It's actually, if you listen to a guy called Wim Hof, he's like, he does like ultra marathons in Antarctica and that.
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, honestly, he's fucking brilliant. But he's got like he does I think it's maybe a month, like a cold water challenge thing. So like you start off with like 15 seconds and you slowly build yourself up. Honestly, it's pure adrenaline that you get when you do it. Like it's such a good technique to make yourself, especially in the morning, to make yourself feel more awake without needing caffeine.
Aye.
But it is what, like I was the same, maybe like when I started it maybe like 10-15 seconds, and now I just start with a cold shower and I don't have a hot shower, just cold for cold for the whole thing. So however long I'm in there, 2-3 minutes.
I like it like burning my skin hot.
But that's the thing. So do I.
I couldn't get a cold on ever.
Like, and I don't give myself. I've not got a choice. Like,
oh no.
I would love to have a hot shower,
just for the record, by the way, Scott was having hot showers until he's just got his aim hoods. He's just know what to burn the fucking mic.
I've actually not got hot water, that's what it is. I'm fucking no paying my bills.
No, but honestly, it is some rush, and you should give it a go. And if you do give it a shot, let us know how it makes you feel.
You should definitely. I'm no like.
Right, okay, I'm going to try that.
Do it, honestly, even if it's 10 seconds.
Even if you're just putting your head under it for the first, like, to start with, until you get more and then get your shoulders in. And honestly, the feeling of doing it is unbelievable. I can't recommend it enough.
A lot of folk probably didn't do it because they think, well, I don't know how it works for you, but they'll probably think I've had a cold shower, so I'm going to go out, I'm going to have a chill, and I'm going to be freezing for the whole day. Like, that's why I have the hot shower to wash myself and that, so obviously my body temperature's up, and then flicking it to cold, I take a deep breath, and obviously it takes a wee bit of time for, like, when you flick the switch to go put it on cold, for the water to, like, kind of do what it's doing. So I'm just like, fuck. And then,
you can feel it coming. You can,
and it takes your breath away, so you're kind of just like.
See, the thing is, it takes your breath away when you first start it.
Aye.
Do that whole, like you fucking can't get up, and then now I just get in.
Like
I'm
fine. On the
aye, not a problem. I can swim about in the Antarctic neighbour.
Just need to find a wee Rose Dawson. But right, before we go, Courtney, is there anything else you want to add to everything that you've just said? Or anybody you want to shout out, or anything you want to promote, or anything anything you want to say before we cut the podcast?
Nah, I think I've said enough. For like...
I was thinking, I'm stealing this idea, but maybe if we get I don't know if you want to do this, but we can look at like doing a survey monkey thing.
Aye.
Like for folk, we'll put it on Instagram or something, and then if folk want to ask us questions, they can put them in the survey thing, and then on the next podcast, whoever's the guest, we'll get them to.
Aye, so is that for like to see what folk want to hear or how they found it?
I just like, so it's just so we can like gauge how folk are finding it, and if like the folk have got any questions for us that we want to ask or stuff that we want to cover, then we can do that. But I'll have a look into it, and we'll see.
Right, so just before we go, thanks a lot, Courtney, for giving us your story.
That's okay.
I'm sure a lot of folk out there will listen to it and be surprised for a start, but take their hat off to you for doing it, because it's certainly not easy.
We know.
But how do you feel now that you've come out?
Yeah, it's good to like get it all off my chest.
Aye, I'm going to seize the day now.
Yeah.
Aye, cool, sure.
But no, if anybody's been affected by anything that Courtney's discussed or like me or Scotty spoke about, just feel free to hit us up on the Facebook page, Jordan's Anxiety Society, or on our Instagram, Anxiety Society Podcast. But yeah, this is hoping to get broadcasted out on Sunday. It'll be available on YouTube or Spotify, but you're already listening to it, so I don't know why I'm saying that. But aye, thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot to Courtney. Thanks a lot to Scott, and we'll speak to you again just shortly.
Alright. Cheers.